as part of TCS operations there and shaped a lot of policies. He's also been a great influence, continues to be in the government of India in a number of security-related decision-making bodies where he advises the government while also managing CERTIN to a large extent. And part of the reason is we are here is again thanks to him because of the recent notifications we've seen a lot of regulatory work happening in the CERTIN space for the information security community. So we'll use that framework for today's discussion. Then there is Anuprita Daga. You must have heard her yesterday, some excellent sessions that she was in, and she was also talking about CISOs and the kind of stuff that they can do. She's also done something very unique, which is put together almost 2,000 CISOs and information security people together, because this is a concept which is very close to my heart, that if your adversary is united in some ways, then why the defense cannot be disjointed? We have to be equally connected to each other, speak to each other, so the good guys have to be as well connected amongst themselves as the bad actors, and therefore she's been doing a lot of work besides her work as CISO of Yes Bank. And again, she's been almost 20 years in the CISO information security leadership space, besides a longer career in the information security space. And then of course we have Mr. Ajit Menon. He's CISO TCS, an old colleague of Dr. Bahl. Again, many years, almost a decade plus in major leadership positions in the information security. He's also a business leader. He's set up centers globally, and he also deals with a lot of regulatory complexities from a global perspective. So we hope to learn a lot from him. Just a few quick opening words. Cybersecurity, as we keep talking about, is a very complex and shared responsibility. So there will be a lot of positioning from the government of India, because they have to protect the nation from one perspective, and also we don't know who the adversary is. The adversary could be a non-state actor, the adversary could be a state actor wanting to create trouble in important institutions like Yes Bank or TCS, because if they can take out one or two institutions, that's a huge blow to India's national security and its economic security. So there are different perspectives that have to come in. Somebody like Ajit will be working a lot, dealing with similar kind of challenges and regulatory issues in various other companies. So a lot of that experience can feed back as a loop into our national posture, which again will be very important. And Anuprita handles the BFSI sector, and she's got decades and decades of experience in that sector, which again is one of the most critical information infrastructures, which we heard about yesterday from DG NCIIPC. So that's the format that we are looking at. I'll request all the opening speakers to have their opening remarks for 5 minutes. And we will start with discussing the certain notifications and what was the intent behind it. When I spoke to Dr. Bahl, I realized that there is a lot of miscommunication floating around, and those notifications are actually supposed to be helping all of you do the work that you do as organizations and as individuals in the infosec space. So let's hear Dr. Bahl and the others, and then we'll have a more interactive session. So,
thank you, Saikat, for these very kind words, and good afternoon to all of you. He's literally gone and build up a lot of expectations amongst everyone, so I hope we can live up to those. But having said that, there's a huge amount of, after COVID, digital transformation which is happening in the society, government as well as industry, and they made sure that this cyber infrastructure becomes borderless for all to thrive, but also generate huge volume of data. And this has attracted a lot of attackers, criminals, etc., and also has increased the attack surface. You all come across incidents of SolarWinds, Colonial Pipeline, Log4j. All of them show that industry has matured and we all are deeply interconnected and are now susceptible to vulnerabilities on a global scale. But our ability to handle risks and incidents is not at the desired pace. And you've seen with all these incidents which are happening. But so what's the sort of threat landscape that we are actually seeing? Saikat mentioned about ransomware. I don't know how many of you have seen the H1 2022 report which has been put up on the Cert-IN website. Anyone seen it, not seen it? Aware of it? Hello? Need coffee? Okay, you have seen it. So we've said that there has been a 51% increase compared to 2021. We are seeing malware, we are seeing targeted phishing, there is obviously APTs, data breaches and leaks. There is also fake apps, unauthorized access to social media, and digital payment threats which are increasing. What are these actors, malicious actors doing? They are using binaries which are already available in the target environment rather than deploying custom tools and malware. For example, they are using AnyDesk for remote administration. They are using ngrok, reverse proxy applications to maintain persistence. So we've seen all these sort of incidents which are happening. In fact, last year, CERT handled one incident every 30 seconds. So you can imagine the volume that we are handling. And we gave out advisories. Per day, 3 advisories, which is huge. Making an advisory is not easy. You have to go through a whole lot of details, look at what will work, what will not work, should not break systems, etc., and then publish them. So publishing 3 advisories per day, handling one incident every 30 seconds is a humongous task. And these are all the sort of threat environment which I mentioned. You're seeing none of them are connected. They are all different type of skills that are required to handle these. So it's mind-boggling when a person is sitting and trying to handle, and you are expecting someone to handle more than one type of incident. But that does not mean we have a huge army of people doing all this. Don't get that impression. Let me take some cases, since Saikat mentioned that what made you come out with these sort of directions. See, we've seen incidents where the victims in their ICT environment, installation of new software has happened, but they're not even aware of it. Okay? Because there's no auditing, there's no monitoring mechanism, there are no logs being kept. People have used VPN and logged in from outside India. These are not detected. And there is no reason for anyone in that environment to log in from outside India. We've seen brute force attempts, and these were not captured. Group policies were being modified after compromising the domain users, and all this was undetected. So, seeing all these things, it's not just one incident, 2 incidents. We've been seeing this for the last few years, and then we thought, let's get to the root cause. One of the issues everyone has been raising was about reporting of incidents, which you said 6 hours. If you look at the IT Act, it already says report incidents in a reasonable time frame so that action can be taken. Now when you start, we all have the IST, Indian stretchable time. So when you start stretching what is written with the right intention, then there's a challenge. Now reasonable time frame, people started informing or reporting after 6 months, after 1 year. Is that acceptable? Is that a reasonable time frame? I can understand you give it to me after 1 day, 2 days, so that, as Saikat mentioned, this is all a team sport. If it is a team sport and if we have to collaborate, cooperate, etc., how are we going to collaborate and cooperate? If you're not going to inform, brush it under the carpet, obviously the other entities are not going to be aware of it. No one can protect themselves. So one after the other, everyone starts falling. Is that acceptable? So, we saw all these sort of gaps. Now, there was some incident. As I said, we don't have a huge army of people. So, normally I would be leaving office around 9:30, 10. So, if people think that being in the government, one can go home at 5, change your impressions about that. It's no longer like that. So, I get a call from someone at 9 that we are seeing a huge attack sort of stuff happening, and it was in the financial sector, and there might be huge amount of money that might be lost. We don't know how to reach out to that particular entity. Can you help us? So if you have a point of contact, obviously you can immediately reach out to those persons and take action. We had a point of contact, reached out. Fortunately, they were doing some reconciliations. They were in office. We told them, this is what is happening. Can you immediately look into your systems and see what is happening and revert back? Within 15 minutes, everything was taken care of. They said, yes, this was something happening. Thank you for alerting us. We've taken action. We checked back. Are you still seeing this? They said, no, it has stopped. So within a span of about half an hour, everything was taken care of. So that's why we said you have to provide us with the point of contacts. If you do not give point of contacts, whom am I going to reach out to? How am I going to take care and safeguard you? And if you expect that, no, we should be taking care and safeguarding, if you don't provide such details, because just now also when I was walking in here, someone said we are just wondering as to who should be the point of contact. I said, what is there to wonder in this? I said, you just tell me whoever we can pick up the phone and talk to 24/7, that person should be the point of contact. And whatever language that CERT talks, if it is a technical language, that person should understand that. That's about it. Nothing more than that. It's nothing complex. Then there was issue, I believe, on VPNs, etc. So, how many of you here have given your house on rent? Anyone? Quite a few. Okay, so when you give on rent, do you do background verification checks, inform the police that so and so, because those are some guidelines which have come from the Ministry of Home Affairs saying that you should report whoever is your tenant and check the antecedents, etc. Do you do those? Yes. What we have seen, the data centers, etc., are giving out services. They have no clue what it is being used for. Now, if you rented out a place and if the person inside there happens to be a terrorist, sits there, makes the bombs, takes it out in the physical space, and then never returns back, and when you start tracing and you come to this house, law enforcement, what are you going to do? Catch the owner, right? So, when we are seeing such incidents, when we trace it back, do our analysis, and you catch the owner, they say, yes, we have rented this out, but we have no clue who have we rented this out to. Yes. So, this is where the challenge starts. That's why we said you have to have KYC for all this. And for all ransomware, everything is being demanded in crypto. So, that's where this issue of crypto came in. So, with that, that's the background of how these directions were given. I hope that gives you some flavor as to what's happening, what's not happening. Over to you, sir.
So, I was going to ask him a few more questions, but sir sort of preempted me and gave the answers before I could pose them. But just to give you a background, like many of you are CISOs here, but some of you will at some point become CXOs and CISOs. Why the regulatory environment is very important is because to understand it from their perspective, they have a large mandate. and they have a large responsibility, and they won't be able to do it unless there is some enforcement. Like if you are expecting them to protect somebody, but they will take reasonable time as 1 year, obviously they won't be able to do their job. So that sensitivity needs to be understood when you understand the kind of role CERTIN plays. And there is a lot of material that's already available, not only on their website. If you look at what Cyber Swachh Kendra is trying to do, again, you will get to a lot of information. And many CISOs, I think 700 plus CISOs are already connected to you, where through a Stix taxi format, they're giving back a lot of threat intelligence. And now that threat intelligence is being recognized globally as some of the best feeds, etc. So this is a work in progress, and there are of course questions, and I'll be raising some questions here, but there is a lot of good that is happening. Now the BFSI sector is a very matured sector in that sense, and it's dealt with these threats for a long time. How do you see the CERTIn as a end user, and who has to comply with some of these, and how much do you think this will help you as a CISO in the sector that you're in?
So I think question of how much it will help is obviously, if you see, like in my introduction you talk about the collaboration, right? I mean, and government, and it is good that at government level there are a lot of proactive actions which are happening. And those proactive actions, let's say that, whether it is a manufacturing company or any other bank or any other BFSI sector, and the way the crunching on IOC and Sanjay sir, as he said that, okay, when we are issuing the advisory or alert, then definitely there is a lot of work which is happening. And obviously that relevant is coming to us. And we ourselves have also seen, because it's a very, one is the bank CISOs and then other CISOs also, there is quite a good small pockets where people are connected, and when something happens, at least we take help of each other. And I myself has experience in last 3-4 years saying that, when there is either we have reported or somebody has reported, and 4 to 6 hours, that was also in the industry, in banking 4 to 6 hours is very normal, because we are doing it for a long time. But for other than banking, I think that is one thing where people fit. And as sir said, like 6 months, 1 year, maybe 1 day, 2 days. But we ourselves have seen that, after reporting it, this is quite a bit of work which happens. And the same thing as an advisory which comes to all the banking side, right? And there is a lot of coordination. And it's not only from CERT to C side to RBI to other regulators. There is quite a good collaboration also which happens, which we experience it. And how does that help us proactively? Like when I'm giving it, it is helping like all other 200, 300 banks. At the same time, when somebody is giving it, definitely it is helping us also. So the whole system in one limited pocket is really working very well, and we are a part of that. And when it is being extended to all the industries, I'm sure that the threat intel what we have right now, that will really be multifold, and India will have their own threat intel also, and which we all will be able to use that.
So from a notification perspective, you think this is really helpful from a
It is very, very helpful, and now this has become such a BAU now for us that when we get the threat intel, obviously there is another background process which, we go ahead and do that, because we have not seen whether false positive or irrelevant or anything like that. So for us it is very, very helpful. Like it's a very strong input which is coming to us, and thanks to the whole team for that. One is that this whole threat intel, and during pandemic, right, many times there's also a good connect where whenever we need something happening or some doubt, and they also have a point of contact where we connect with them, we take their guidance, or we also, if there's anything, we discuss with them like what need to be done. I think there is quite a bit multifold collaboration which is happening between the government and the industry.
And also, I think the notifications have brought in a lot of clarity where certain areas where that clarity was not there. And if you see the subsequent FAQs, there was a lot of rethinking also, which then brought further clarification. And I think it also took some feedback to the initial notifications and eased certain things where they felt that yes, some time needs to be given.
Yes, definitely it is a lot of things to us also. And again in the CISO forum of banks and all, we also got further clarity on that. For banking, this is like a normal, right? For other industry, it's a new norm. But while making that new norm, for everything which is starting is going to have initial jerk, and then obviously when they get the visibility of that, obviously they will also understand the meaningful activity behind it. So today, when Sir was talking about reasonable time period, right? Why 4 to 6 hours? This is a reason for that, and that for reason to see that, okay, why quickly we need to report it, because for us it is containment within our company. For him, containment within the country.
Country, yes.
That's a huge difference, right? And I think once people start, seeing that whole life cycle, people will understand, okay, why CERTIn is talking about 4 to 6 hours, why CERTIn is talking about NTP, your time synchronization, why CERTIn is talking about log management. But yeah, it's a cycle. Like they have to. If I am confident to talk about it because I have experienced it. If everybody has to get that confidence, obviously they have to go through that life cycle.
Ajit, you've seen a global perspective, right? And you've dealt with other certs. What changed when the notice came, and how does it compare with the other certs and how they operate in the countries you have worked in?
Thanks, Saikat. That's an interesting question because if we look at what CERT India is trying to do versus what others are trying to do, we do have a good amount of threat intel coming in. Now, if I compare it with...
Can you hear us?
I'm audible?
Okay. Yeah.
So,
I felt that there...
I think he said okay. Hello?
Yeah, much.
Okay. So, if I compare the threat intel we get in other geographies, because we connected in most of the geographies where we operate, I can tell you that the IOCs that we receive there are hardly like 1/10 or less. The actionable intelligence that we get from Cert-IN have really been valuable. We get threat intel, but the importance is to get actionable intelligence. And that is what keeps you a step ahead of your adversary. So that's something that really makes a big change. And that is, I would agree with what Anuprita said. The amount of information that we get back from Cert obviously gives us the motivation to report so that it helps not just us, but also others who are functioning. And we have to remember that unlike maybe a decade ago, where each of us were individual organizations, today it is an ecosystem. In some way you are connected. Like we are connected with the bank is connected with someone else, and that one is connected back to us. So unless we take that thought that we have to protect the ecosystem, you are never protected. So you have to move beyond the boundaries of saying that I want to protect my organizations. It just cannot be about yourself because you're no longer an isolated entity in the larger ecosystem. The supply chain attacks that we're talking about, that today is the biggest concern that exists. Most of our customers talk about it. Like if organizations like ours, which are service providers, are attacked and we do not have the right protection, they also become party to an attack, right? So these are concerns which we keep hearing from customers. These are concerns that we keep hearing from regulators outside with whom we discuss these issues. So the whole thing goes around in terms of how quickly can we firstly identify, how quickly can we share and resolve it collectively, because it's not just a one-person game anymore. So if you talk about other regulators, we're not seeing enforcement to the extent that we're talking about, but I think the need of the hour is that we get to that level so that the sharing happens. We have to look beyond the demand, but we have to understand the underlying intent. Okay. So in that sense, I would say that...
So that intent part that you mentioned is very interesting. So if intent can be established, then without enforcement, you can probably get a lot of people to agree to do some of these things. So if you were to then say that if you wanted to see the notifications as there, would you want to tweak anything in those notifications today?
Okay, so if you ask me if something could have been done differently on those notifications, yes. There are a few things which possibly I may not be very convinced about. First and foremost is, let me go in the sequence so that I recall. When we talk about the time synchronization to be done, that's a given. Without that, no investigations can ever happen. But if I bring the practicality of trying to say that every system, including the OT systems, have to be time synchronized to a particular clock, okay, that becomes overbearing. I think it got diluted a little later in the next thing that it can be in line with it. But I think we could have just stopped by saying you need to have time synchronization, right? With the NIC and PL could have been avoided because that just brings in an additional layer. Like today, if there is an attack on company A versus company B, you start with when it started in company A. And your timeline is, from there on, you need to make sure that there is time synchronization versus company B will have their own. And even if there is, let's say, a minute or two, you can always compare that, okay, this is a start and this is the sequence in which it happened. Okay, the seconds within the organizations will not vary as much unless it's a connected organization. So that's my perspective there. The reporting part is, as I said, I completely agree as to why we need to report. Timelines, people may have their own opinion. We are okay, and this is not new. Reporting requirements were always established. When you get to the KYC part of it, that's where the complexity starts. And I think Sanjay gave a classic example of when you try to establish the identity of your tenant. Okay, now what means are available to organizations? That's also something that we have to look at. So we understand the need, but how do I go about doing it? How do I, if I'm a service provider who's giving out a VPN service and maybe an individual is connecting with me, what is the identity that with which I can validate? If I have to go back to the ground and do it, it's impractical in a large country like ours. If we say Aadhaar is a verification mechanism, I think the Supreme Court ruling is very clear that Aadhaar cannot be the only way to authenticate. So, as an organization, if I have to align, okay, then what are the means available to me? It's not that I do not want to, but can I? How practical is it? But these are questions that come on to the corporate side. That we understand the objective, but the implementation is where, as we say, the rubber hits the road, is where we really have a problem. Too many potholes, that creates an issue.
So you heard...
So let me talk about time synchronization first. How many of you have carried out BCP-DR in your organizations?
Show of hands. Okay.
Very few. Surprising. So if you carried out BCP-DR, have you considered a scenario that you are no longer connected to the rest of the world? The undersea cables have been cut off. Now how do you connect to the rest of the world? And in that scenario, how are you going to get your time? If you are not connected to NPL or NIC or whatever we've said, where are you going to get your time from? Have you thought of that scenario? Considered it? Put it in your BCP-DR plans? No. So, what I'm saying is that you need to consider various aspects in today's complex environment due to the variety of geopolitical stuff that is happening all around us. So with that, we have been trying to say, yes, you can connect outside, but when you have a challenge, you should be aware what you will have or what you will not. Also, these attacks are crossing borders. Now, when I have to get some help, support from overseas certs or other agencies whom we are in touch with, the first thing they ask is, give us the logs so that we can check and give you back some data. If the logs are not going to match, well, Ajit did mention that you can try and correlate 1 or 2 minutes. But what we've seen is that even a few seconds here and there, no one is going to come back. They will say, this thing has not emanated from here. No one has the time to sit and do that for you. So if the synchronization of time is not correct, there will be a huge challenge. You will never be able to complete your analysis. The second one was on
the customers, that as if I'm offering services.
How do you do your KYC?
Or for example, let's say there's a company which offers free VPN services and hundreds and thousands of people across them.
So how do you do your KYC? Completely agree on the Supreme Court ruling this, that Aadhaar cannot be the only one. We have not said that should be the only one. We've said that you can do it in multiple ways. We've given ideas that you can do it in the fashion what the RBI has suggested, or what SEBI has suggested, or what DOT has suggested. You can take any of those. But as long as you have a mechanism, because those will be only required when there is an incident and the trail leads up to coming to that situation. And that time, if you say we have no clue as to who this is, what is it, then you are stuck. So we need that detail only at that time. Otherwise, we are not requiring those details at all. So wait for some more time. Probably we may come up with a few more additional FAQs to address some of these issues which have been raised. So maybe there will be a handful of FAQs which will further come.
I can't help but ask, is there a time frame to that new FAQs?
So
I used to be a journalist, so I can't help it.
here there is a time frame. So
is it within the 6-hour time?
No. FAQs are ready. It has to go through a certain process. So it's in that process. Let me put it that way.
Right.
So the moment it comes back to me, it will be up.
Yes, Anuprita.
Yeah. So actually, from industry perspective, I'll tell you, I'm not talking only from my own perspective. But what happens is that every regulator is the maturity of every regulator is different, right? And for these guidelines, what happens is that even within BFSI, as Ajit was saying, that the way RBI, IRDA, and again within BFSI there are enormous regulators, honestly. SEBI, PFRDA, NSE. I mean, although NSE, BSE are not regulators, NPCI. So we have regulator and quasi-regulator. And being the financial industry, we have to report to everyone, right? And what happens when the guideline comes? It is the same guideline which is getting forwarded. But when we ask the question, and this is not my problem, but when within the industry, when we are talking,
but
with
we are here only to hear
CXOs.
your point.
Huh?
We are here to hear only your point.
Yeah, no, it's not only. So I'm talking about intent at a country level. So intent of CERTIn is correct, and which has to be there, right? I mean, there's no doubt about it. And whatever intent, when we try to meet that intent, obviously, eventually we will only get the benefit of it. Because if everybody starts reporting the incident, obviously, why only from bank? Even other industries also, that is also going to benefit us. Only thing is that all the industries are not matured to that level to start adopting it, right? And that is one of the biggest problem. And also, if you see a CXO also ranges from 10 years experience to 30-35 years experience also. So the industry is matured at different level. CXOs are matured at different level. Regulators are matured at different level.
But I think one
adoption of that is the biggest bottleneck right now.
One recognition of that is that they gave additional time to SMEs and other companies which may not have the same maturity. So that I think 28 September is when, so they extended that time. So that recognition is there to an extent.
Recognition is there. I agree. And there were discussions also. If industries are not matured, and even for interpretation of that, eventually any company will say, okay, let's get the consulting company and then do it. But that kind of linkage between the central government to regulator to the industry, I think that one chain, I think if that is being done, that will help.
Yeah, that
will help the CXOs.
Absolutely. So I'll just add one more question which I had for you and Dr. Bahl. That is that intent, we all agree, was good, and there is a methodology, and we can discuss the methodology, a plus here and a minus there, etc. But also we've seen that businesses also have legitimate interests not to reveal too much of data, because this could have major business implications to your customers and so on and so forth. So a notification with the right intent could very easily become a tool for surveillance as well. So where and how do you ensure that it does not become a data capturing surveillance tool, but actually serves the original intent? Because Dr. Bahl is there today, so we can trust him. But tomorrow somebody else could take over after him and use the same notifications for different things. So how would you look at that? And after hearing your answer, something from Dr. Bahl and some additional points that you wanted to make.
Sure. So when we talk about the reporting aspects. Okay. Sorry. So when we talk about the reporting aspects and the log collection and other things, I think the rules today say that the organization should have the logs for 6 months across anything that might need investigations. And as required, CERT may ask for those logs if they get involved. Okay. Now, each of these are independent statements, and depending on the intent, maybe as you rightly said, maybe the successor could put a comma somewhere and the whole thing changes. And it can actually mean that organizations may have to continuously give data because it's a demand from the government, right? At the end of the day, CERT is a government body in that sense. So it could be misused. I think it is important that we set up checks and balances so that the intent is maintained. And also organizations have a right to appeal somewhere in that sense, that this is something that is getting excessive. So today it is logs, tomorrow it could get to data. So how do we make sure that proactively the intent is maintained? Second, the other point that I just wanted to put on the table, and I think this is important for Sanjay also to reconsider, is that the aspect of reporting on organizations, perfectly, I understand that intent and that's perfect. But when you talk about a service organization like ours, and you say that whoever observes it first has the mandate to report, and if you fail in your duty, there is no indemnification. Technically, it translates to if my organization is providing services to her company, and I'm running a SOC, okay, I will only see incidents. So before I tell her, I have to tell CERT also, right? So these are areas which are catchy. Because then she would come back as a customer saying,
organization, but you have happened to see it first.
Because that's the service that's been outsourced to me. I'm the first person to see it. I'm running a SOC. Okay, so before I report here, or I have to do a parallel reporting.
For some maneuvering room so that she gets to report it rather than the thing. Is that a fair ask, sir?
And if he's servicing me, obviously he will have obligations to first report to me.
To you first.
And unless I say, okay, he can't.
Do you think that's a fair point, sir?
I will probably disagree because of what we are seeing on ground. If, as a service provider, he has reported to her, cases have been there where it has been pushed under the carpet. Now again, the moment you push it under the carpet, no one knows about it. The service provider is aware. Now when something else happens and you do an audit or you find out some other incident, link it to this, and then you investigate and you find out this is what had happened. Why was it not reported? That is where it is all linked and say, oh, we would have reported, it's in reasonable time frame, we were about to report. So that's how it gets extended to 6 months, 1 year, etc. So we've seen cases, and that's why we've said whoever sees it, report. Morning, over breakfast, having some very interesting conversation about how some of the other countries look at security, etc. And what popped up was Israel. Now, if you go to Israel from the physical security space, they are taught that right from childhood, even if a small child sees someone suspiciously acting on the road, either they will go and tell that person why, what, etc., or they will report. Now, they don't have to wait for some CCTV camera to capture it and then that should be informed. Whoever has seen something, just report. That is how they keep their country safe. Now, if you are wanting your cyberspace to be safe and you say that, okay, it is their responsibility because there is a contract, but the contract says, yes, I'll report to you, and then you shove it under the carpet, that's not acceptable. So, that's why I'll differ there. And the point that they mentioned about reporting 4 to 6 hours in the banking industry. Now, if you see, everything is interconnected, as I mentioned. If the banking industry can report in 6 hours, within 6 hours, it is the other industries which will pull everyone down. That's the weakest link then. So everyone will have to come up to that level and then start making sure that we are safe and secure in this digital world. I'll just take one moment. How many of you believe 5G is to be implemented soon round the corner and will change everything? So what will change from a threat perspective? Do you have any idea? Huh? more risks.
And more complex threats.
No, I was just reading somewhere, it is predicted that incidents will rise to 5 billion every 10 minutes. If that is going to happen, 5 billion incidents every 10 minutes, are you saying that I am going to report something after 72 hours? And 72 hours is for privacy, not for security.
So I have exactly 2 minutes, so I'll ask 2 questions and then we'll end this session. But the organizers played a trick on me. At 12:30 they said 15 minutes, at 12:37 they said 5 minutes. So there's time synchronization needed right here. Just FYI.
So first of all, it's a welcome step from an
Question.
audit.
I need a sharp question.
Sharp question I'll give
Yes.
you. It's a welcome step from an auditor's perspective.
Question,
Yeah, question.
please.
I'm coming to a question, sir.
Question,
Give me
please.
1 second, sir. I'll come
No,
to
we
the
don't
question.
have 1 second.
Okay,
Otherwise,
sir.
move on.
How do you enforce these 6 hours and all these mandates that you have put in this? Because I'm clearly seeing that most of the CISOs are not very comfortable with all of this. How do you enforce this into an industry?
See, the enforcement will start happening the moment there are incidents. That's why I said if you report, you have seen something, a DDoS attack, etc. happening, and you tell us, we will enforce it. If there is an incident, the moment we get into it and an analysis, it will come. Because there will be some 2, 3, 4 cases which will be put up, and then everyone will fall in line if they are not doing it.
So
that is changing. We
more-
are seeing
one
the
more
number of
question.
incidents which
There's
are
some
being reported.
questions from this
one more
side.
thing.
One
One
question.
more thing to clarify to you is that it's not that most of the CISOs are not comfortable. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that people has to understand and start adopting it. So that was my point.
Yes, you had a question.
So just one question. When somebody reports, let's say, for the namesake, TCS reports something to you. So when you propagate that information, do you capture the essence of the industry or you just circulate it like anonymous?
No, it's first of all, the name TCS will never come.
Mm-hmm.
We see what is happening from the industry perspective. We are seeing what is happening outside the country also. And then the advisories are made. That's why I said advisory making is not an easy subject.
Advisory is one part. When we come
And
to
when we
actionables,
put it from actionable perspective, the indicators of compromise, the hashes, domains, etc., all those are propagated in a automated fashion. So if you have the capacity to digest it automatically through sticks taxi formats, you will be able to do it.
Okay, one last question. Yeah, gentleman. Yes, go ahead.
Should I go ahead? Yeah. So, sir, my question to you is that from a corporate perspective, once the first time I received FAQ, it looked a bit nebulous, a bit ambiguous, but the subsequent FAQ clarified most of it. So, what are your plan firstly to scale up, as you said that you're short of manpower, and secondly, when can we see a future wherein the advisory itself would cater for most of the scenarios, and we don't land up in situation like this one, where you have to issue multiple FAQs to clarify?
No, there are no multiple FAQs. I'm just saying there were some specific questions like raised here also, which will be addressed. So it's not that multiple FAQs will keep coming. Because those who are in this field and who understand it technically, they've understood what has to be done and they are complying to it. Because we are seeing an increase in the number of reported incidents, already. But those who are from the legal perspective are still looking at the commas and full stops, which they can do because that's their job and that's how they get paid.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I don't have a question. I just wanted to provide a comment on the issue of principal agent, which was raised. So, terrorism is a very attractive simile to apply in many situations. See something, say something. But cyber attacks, especially the serious ones, are to be treated like economic offenses, which go on for a long period of time and they have to be detected in a different manner. Now, in banking, for example, the banking regulator puts the responsibility clearly on the principal, and all outsourced entities have to come in through the principal, which is a bank in this case. So I think choosing the right metaphor is important, and in this case I would recommend choosing insider fraud or economic offense as the metaphor, because that will detect the more serious ones. Otherwise you will hear a lot of noise, which can anyway be detected by other means. But to detect the real serious ones, we should take a principal as the responsible party and the long-term approach.
Okay, yes.
So my question is, 6 hours of reporting understood, but how do you decide what
We can't hear what.
Can you hear me now? Yeah. So 6 hours of reporting understood. How do you decide what incident needs to be reported? You can't report every possible
I think
incident.
that list has been already provided. There are some list of 20 incidents. So have a look at that list. It clearly says what has to be reported.
Thank you. And any final words, Ajit, from you?
Nothing specific. They want to take a question in place of.
Any? Okay, we'll have one more.
Yeah, hello. So CERTIN has this empanelment, CERTIN does empanelment, right? So I have a small question. I have this question from like 3 years. I'm not sure whom to ask. Since you are here, I'm asking the question to you. So it's a very good concept that you are empaneling security companies and to maintain a standard, right? So the objective is very good. But when it's put into action, right, I always see that government, especially when it raises tenders, right, for security audits and stuff, they always go to the least bidder. And in some cases, I saw that 30 government websites are provided, the least bidder quoted for like 30,000 rupees for 30 websites of government. In such cases, how do you ensure that the quality is being maintained?
This is where the issue of the awareness at the user side is lacking. Okay. I think with these and whatever is happening in the cyberspace, we are trying to make changes so that they understand that this is not the way it will work. Because that's where the incidents start. The moment these incidents come, and that's when we start talking to their senior management and inform them what's happening, they start understanding what mistakes they've gone through.
Yeah, because most of the senior...
I think...
Space for that. Ajit,
Yeah.
you want to try?
I'll add to your point. I think long back, because we bid for a lot of government contracts, and we had suggested that why don't you split the BOQ into the functionality and the security component, so that the security is not the area of compromise. You want to look at it differently because different organizations may package it. The other aspect, and I think going back to the user behavior part, you take any government tender for that matter. The email ID is hardly the government ID. I have seen so many contracts where it's either a Gmail or a Yahoo or something. I really get shocked at times that you can say that the tender is to be responded to or questions are to be put out to a Gmail ID. It's surprising. So I do agree with you that what we say versus what we do, a huge difference.
There's a joke in the military that the rifle you're using for fighting has been bought from the lowest bidder in that sense. So that's something that you could possibly look at. Also, CERTIN has a responsible disclosure program.
Responsible vulnerability disclosure program, as well as we are a CV numbering authority. So if any of you ever find bugs, etc., and you're looking at getting a CV number, kindly report to us so that we can help you get a number and acknowledge accordingly and give you a letter, etc.
And also, if you look at the booklet that was given to you when you got your batches, that booklet has an advertisement from CERTIN which gives details about that program, so have a look at that. With that, thank you so much, sir.
Thank you very much, Saikat, for a great panel. And
Thank you.
Both of you. I hope you all enjoyed.
And Anuprita and Ajit, it was a pleasure and a privilege hearing both of you, and look forward to more interactions at Nullcon.
Thank you so much.
Pleasure was all ours. Thank you.
Thank you.
all.